Welcome to Longevity Industries' presentation of the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. I am your host, Dean Phillips, and I am so fortunate today. Why? Because I have the founder of the Women in Manufacturing, and she is Allison Grealis. Allison, please welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's so fantastic to have you here, and you were on our show before, but I just want to kind of get an update on what things have been changing. How have you been progressing in your journey with the women in manufacturing, and how's that been doing overall?
Yeah, it's been we've had dramatic growth since we last connected and talked, and obviously the industry has gone through lots of kind of blips and impacts with pandemic and other things that have happened since we last chatted. So, lots of great growth has happened for us as a trade association, and as well, we see companies, many of them thriving and really embracing some of these outputs of pandemic and how they are recruiting talent, how they're retaining talent, advancing them, and then many of these companies now with a renewed focus or new focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Then that's excellent. If you had to look in your crystal ball and look forward 5 years, what things do you see improving and changing over these next 5 years that you're looking forward to, whether it's technology, workforce development, more DEI surrounding things, or just in general, what outcomes do you see for women getting into manufacturing?
Well, interestingly, there was some great data that was shared in October of 2022 from the census data that had been collected from the government reports that they do. And it was exciting to see that there had been some significant improvement in the number of women entering manufacturing positions. So their data had taken a segment of from 2010 to 2020, or until pandemic struck, and the share of women in manufacturing jobs rose in every working age category. So we have seen improvement of numbers of women entering manufacturing. And as well, we've seen improvement of the number of female leaders in manufacturing. So most recent data cites, and this is as well, endorsed and validated by data we've done and research we've done with Xometry, a Thomas company, 1 out of every 4 management positions in manufacturing are presently held by women. So when we started, and when Women in Manufacturing started more than a decade ago, we were but 27% of the manufacturing workforce. Present day, we're about 30% women are of the manufacturing workforce. And we do see improvement in both the number of women that are holding manufacturing positions, as well as just the total number of women who are in manufacturing careers. When we look out 5 years, there's been huge improvement and lots of renewed focus, as I mentioned, around inclusivity, around corporate cultures, a renewed focus on how do we integrate flexibility into manufacturing positions. And I think we're going to see this continuing over the next 5 years. Also with technology and innovation, and as well with the new types of manufacturing processes, we do see a change in the types of positions that will be offered and will be available in manufacturing. And I think that's exciting because I think we see a lot of connectivity there with lots of these degrees and the education and the experience that many of these women have and possess as they exit training schools or tech schools or 4-year college degrees. So I think it's exciting. I think that, we all have seen manufacturers struggle with recruitment and talent and filling open positions. And I think, this output, that these positive outputs, of course there are many negative as well, but many of these positive outputs of pandemic, which caused manufacturers to reconsider or revisit how they work, how they manufacture, or how they communicate, are going to help us as we try to recruit more women into the industry. That's
great. One thing, I know we had talked about this, kind of your background on the episode that you were on before, on our episode 212, but I kind of wanted to go back and touch how you got involved in the Women in Manufacturing and your previous work before that. How did you get involved in manufacturing?
Yeah, so I've never directly been on a manufacturing production line or working in a facility, but have been connected to manufacturing companies now for more than 22 years So I started working with trade associations right after grad school. And I always had an interest in community organizing and working with organizations and groups around a common cause and mission. So I did that from a very early age in elementary school and high school, and then in college, working with lots of volunteer groups for a specific mission and focus. And so my first job out of college, I did work that was in the community organizing and organizational space. And in that instance, it was fighting for good government and environmental policies and recycling and different initiatives. And from there, I went to grad school for a degree in public administration. So I knew I had this passion around organizing people for a common cause or mission to create change. And so I was so excited when after grad school, I found an opportunity to work with the Precision Metal Forming Association doing trade association work, and specifically with their chapters or districts. So kind of taking that common kind of thing that really ignited me, which was mobilizing people to do stuff together and do great things together, and getting to do that with PMAs, local chapters, and districts. So I did that for many years, and then I rose and held many positions within the Precision Metal Forming Association. And while there, had the great opportunity to meet some outstanding women in metal forming. And, these women had lots of interest in kind of finding one another and connecting with one another. And so was really excited as a staff person for the association to help support that. So we helped them create discussion groups and roundtables and events. And that Women in Metal Forming group really started to find great value in connecting with one another. We then had our first female chairperson at PMA, Gretchen Zierich, in 2010. Sadly, she's still the only female chairperson that PMA has had, and I'm sure that will change over time. But she worked with me and other staff to help create more women in metal forming activities. And when we were looking for national resources, we found there wasn't a national organization specifically focused generally on women in industry. So we created what was first a conference called a summit for all women in industry and all women in manufacturing. And when we produced the conference, we were thrilled to find that our 133 women who first attended that event in Cleveland, Ohio, were really interested in year-round staying connected. So I went back to the office, created a business plan and a membership model whereby individuals could join the organization, a new organization that we were calling Women in Manufacturing. And since then, we've now grown to almost 17,000 individual members. We now have 326 corporate members. We now power 32 chapters throughout the United States. And then most recently, we are expanding internationally as we've grown to close to 500 international members in 54 countries. So we have our first international kickoff program on March 3rd in Zweibrücken, Germany. So we've seen, again, this movement of getting people connected and them sharing resources and seeing the power of women supporting one another now expand dramatically over the last decade.
Wow, that's fantastic. Congratulations to you also.
Oh, thank you.
If you had to look at some of the things, how do we, and I'm sure that this is still a challenge, is how do we get women interested in STEM curriculums and in the technology sector? What are some things that we can do to try and make that happen?
Yeah, so I think, one of the challenges is that we just don't talk enough about what manufacturing careers look like and the opportunities that exist within manufacturing. So one of our big goals as an organization is to really illuminate these stories of careers and of women and their success and their experiences in manufacturing. So I think the younger we can have exposure to individuals, both men and women, about what manufacturing careers look like, the greater success or likelihood of success we're going to have in recruiting them to a manufacturing career. So storytelling is a big piece of it. We've got 222 plus chapter leaders all throughout the country, and we're working with them to share their stories locally, to get engaged with K through 12 institutions, to get engaged with Girl Scouts or community groups, to start exposing them to the success that they've had in manufacturing. So a lot of it is making sure that we are kind of taking off this cloak of invisibility that has for far too long been on what manufacturing careers look like. And so I think, our chapter leaders are great ambassadors, our board members are great ambassadors, and then we nationally try to do a lot as it relates to social media and marketing and messaging around what manufacturing modern day looks like, so that we excite these young individuals about what a manufacturing career is. I host a podcast as well called Hear Her Story, and we've now profiled, I think it's 24 women total. and they've talked about their journeys in manufacturing. And sadly, almost all of our guests fell into manufacturing. It was not by design. And many of them, the first time they got exposed to manufacturing was through a co-op or internship or career fair. But until then, they didn't know about it. So one of our other initiatives is working with other trade associations to help get connected to community, college counselors, high school counselors, individuals who are educators, so that at an earlier age, they could maybe identify some of these skill sets that they see in a student or an individual, and then help offer them this opportunity to linkage that or to see how this could be very applicable in a manufacturing career. So there's lots of work to be done. And, having worked with trade associations now for 22 plus years, this has been a common and consistent problem, how to recruit more people into manufacturing. And so, through things like the Skilled Trades Coalition that I'm a part of, and then I chair the Coalition for Women in Industry, I think working together, we can have a more successful success rate and as well a larger impact on recruiting more people to manufacturing.
Maybe we can get the Girl Scouts to actually make the cookies instead of just selling them.
Right.
Because a lot of people overlook things like that. And that's not to say that, women should be in, baking. But when you're talking about reaching out to the Girl Scouts, there's a lot of areas that activities that the Girl Scouts do that can be interrelated to STEM. And getting them into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There's more of an opportunity to do that and make them aware that, number one, first of all, manufacturing isn't what you may have thought it was, number one. And then number two is, I think, in my opinion, one of the biggest things that opened a lot of people's eyes was in the additive community. And we've had Amy Elliott on, and she does several different shows that she does, and she's also been at working at Oak Ridge National Lab for many years, and she has always done a tremendous job of letting people know that there's a lot of opportunity in the additive community. Not just from the standpoint of making parts through additive, but being creative. Sometimes it's the design. Maybe you enjoy doing design work. And I used to just think that, it should just be STEM. But I realized that when you add in STEAM and change it to that there is a significant portion of it that, especially in additive, that is an artistic element. And getting people involved through the art side of things and bringing them in and making people aware, that this is an opportunity. This is a career of that you can flourish in.
Definitely. And I think, there's been dramatic change since I know when I was in elementary school or high school. I look even just to my own personal sphere of where I get to see firsthand things changing. My daughter's in high school. They have a maker space. They are themselves, she's part of a robotics team. They have things that they're doing 3D printing. They've got maker bots. So that wasn't a thing when I was in elementary school or high school. And I think that, making women and men more familiar with the types of tools that are used in manufacturing is really important, so that someday that could spark, hey, I like to do this. This is something I could be doing in a career in manufacturing. And I think it's all a huge improvement from years ago. And as you were citing, there is some great opportunity with Girl Scouts and with other organizations that have audiences of young boys and girls clubs, for example, where how great if we could be imparting knowledge and information and inspiration about manufacturing to these young minds early, so that when they're thinking about what I want to do with my life, that could be something that surfaces as one of those things they could think about. So I think it's changing it. And it's really basic things. We talk to our members all the time about, if you are a parent and they have nights where they're inviting community members and parents to come talk about careers or, participate in a career day, think about participating. Let's not just showcase what are these traditional careers that have been kind of the all too familiar for those kids who are sitting in classrooms. There's more to be than just an attorney or a doctor or these certain professions that there are often people speaking from. So, go speak about your manufacturing job and career. because I know had I known about these opportunities, I may have thought about differently what I wanted to do professionally. So lots of opportunity for us to improve exposure, to inspire young people to want to go into manufacturing. And again, I think collaboration is key. We all are affiliated with lots of organizations, and if we can all work more together, I think we can have a bigger impact.
I agree. Let's jump ahead a little bit. We talked a little bit there about recruiting and finding and getting people involved in things. What about the next phase, mentoring? Have you found that your leaders within the Women in Manufacturing have been more receptive to try and mentor others to help them get in and see the opportunities?
Definitely. I mean, mentoring is critical, and we do an annual survey in the spring, which we actually be conducting our third annual here soon with Xometry, a Thomas company. And mentoring is cited as one of the most valued things that have been influential in someone rising in their company and as well staying in the industry. So, when we talk to our members, almost all of them are mentoring, whether it be formal or informal. They are participatory in some groups in their companies that are actually matching people and creating a more formalized plan. But most of them, if they don't have those types of formalized plans at their companies, they're doing informal mentoring with people either on their team or other leaders or aspiring leaders in their organizations. Mentoring is really important. Equally important is feedback. So when we do research on some of the reasons why women don't rise in whether it be manufacturing or any industry, so often one of those barriers is that a lot of male managers and leaders, who often are those people making decisions on hiring and advancement, that along a trajectory of a woman's career, that so often she's not getting the feedback that she needs, that it's critically important for her to make changes to maybe her trajectory and or to fill gaps that she may have professionally. So feedback is really important, and honest feedback is really important to females and men as they're looking to kind of rise in their career in industry and company. But mentoring is really important, and, reverse mentoring is a thing. So we often talk about, there's usually equal parts benefit from both spending time with someone who's more junior, and there's equal parts, some expertise that you can gain from that more junior person who has a whole different swell of experiences that can impact you as a leader, and as well, maybe fill some gaps that you have. I know I've seen that personally with, younger individuals that I mentor who have expertise maybe in, social areas, social media, marketing, new trends that are happening that definitely have helped me as a, trying to communicate and try to reach different audiences from our organizational lens. So there's lots of benefit both ways. Mentoring is important, but I would also cite that, sponsorship and advocacy is probably even more important. So while it's great to have conversations and to have, people that can give you counsel, it's even more important to have people within your company and industry who are going to be a sponsor for you and to advocate for you. So someone who, is going to refer to you and mention your name when perhaps an opportunity for advancement is happening or an opportunity for a new assignment. So that's equally as important as you're looking to really kind of rise in your company and in your profession. So I think having that personal board of directors, and that can mix with some people that you're working with presently, some people that you've past worked with, some mentors, some sponsors, some advocates, all of that mix is really important for a person to rise in their career.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned there the sort of 360 review of your own skill set is, and I think that's really important. I belong to Toastmasters, which is a speaking organization. I say that speaking. It's also a leadership organization, and one of the big things is getting a 360 review of your leadership skills and all of your skills in general, because it's easy to have blind spots and nobody mention them to you. It's very difficult to have those candid conversations where somebody in a very constructive way gives you things to work on to help you advance. Because that's really, if you want to advance, you know what? It doesn't just happen. You didn't start off as, an 18-year-old student and you were ready to go run a company. That really doesn't happen. There's a lot of people
Right.
that influence you along the way. And frankly, some of the biggest influencers are people that challenge you and say, hey,
Right.
yes, you can do this, but it isn't going to be, I'm just going to hand you the keys. You're going to have to work, and you're going to have to work hard, and you're going to have to make some changes, because there are things all of us along our careers have had to change and revise in order to continue to grow. And I think that's really important, especially for women that may not have had the mentors. When you look at some of the leadership in the last, hundreds of years within our country, and you think about people in manufacturing, well, of course, because it was a predominantly male history, therefore most of the mentors or leaders that you look to were male. That doesn't mean that they have to be. There are plenty of women that have the skill set to do that. I mean, you mentioned earlier Gretchen Zurich, and she's phenomenal. She really is, and I think she was one of our the best leaders we had within the Precision Metal Forming Association, and I'm proud to know her and have worked with her before on the board. And I could tell you that she was every bit as valuable of a leader as any of the men that had done it, and brought a fresh perspective that I think sometimes we overlook, is that what she brings to the table is very important, and it's very valid to how it changes the way we look at manufacturing as a whole and the opportunities.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you raised the important piece of feedback again. And I think feedback is so important. Evaluations are so important. Coaching is hugely important for men and women. And if you don't know your blind spots, and if you don't know some of those gaps you have, you can't fix what you don't know is a problem. Mm-hmm. And I hearken back to my career, and some of the most painful feedback to receive was also the most critically important for how I changed and how I morphed as a leader, whether it be communication, skills, styles, all of those pieces of feedback you get along the way help you be a better leader, and it's also going to help you not have those barriers as you're looking for a promotion or advancement in your career.
Yeah. And I think that it's very narrow-minded to not think that you can gain a lot of information and a lot of leadership from different areas. And you'd mentioned earlier about advocating for you, and that's important. I think that it's important for women to find the right mentor, find the right leader who will advocate for you within your organization, but also to look outside of, if you truly want to grow, you need to look outside of just the four walls you exist within, as you did. You're a perfect example of that. You looked outside of the four walls of the Precision Metal Forming Association, and it created a fantastic growth opportunity that you have done, and you've changed a lot of people's lives because of that. And that's incredibly impactful. And you have a great story to tell. And you mentioned that also. And I think that's one area people think about, what does storytelling mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. Being in Toastmasters, it's speaking at every opportunity you have, being impactful at every opportunity, never turning down an opportunity to tell people your story and how you've changed people's lives. Because I think that women need to understand that, and they need to use that voice at every opportunity that they have to go to speak, whether it's to a Girl Scout group, whether it's to just, half of the group in Toastmasters, over half of it is women in Toastmasters. We're probably one of the most diverse groups there is. So I think it's 51% is female within Toastmasters. And guess what? These kinds of stories resonate for women who are thinking, you know what? I'm not sure where I'm going in my career, but I had never previously considered manufacturing. But now maybe they think differently. Maybe they think about that opportunity. Maybe they are interested in, I do like technology. How do we how do we reach the people that are a little bit more complicated to reach, people that aren't necessarily getting a newsletter, aren't necessarily reading information about manufacturing? How do we reach outside of that?
I think it's being creative in marketing. So, I have been shocked, and granted, maybe it's just because I'm in this manufacturing space, but I have seen an abundance of creative ways that manufacturing companies are trying to reach people that maybe aren't those consumers of podcasts or aren't consumers of newsletters. I've seen messaging at airports. I was just picking up my luggage a week or so ago from our winter conference, and there was right on the luggage turnstile was an advertisement from a manufacturing company to come work for them. I've seen advertisements on billboards. I've seen paid spots that are done often in partnership, even here in Ohio with our Manufacturing Extension Partnership, that are showcasing the stories of people in manufacturing and encouraging people to check out manufacturing careers. So I think it's reaching people where they're at. There's also great opportunity, and I've seen companies have huge success with tapping into, displaced workers, second chance hiring, going into populations like, working with organizations like Disability Inc., where you can tap into a whole new area of talent. And then I think getting creative too about communities of people. If we know that half of the people getting, for example, 4-year degrees are women, and we know that often a lot of women step out of the workforce when they decide to become parents and have children. There's a large population of people that once kids get to school or to a certain age, they're work ready again. So how do you reach these women about reentry into a profession of manufacturing? So a lot of companies have been really creative with reentry programs for women and other populations that took a step out of the workforce and want to come back into the workforce. So companies have created partnerships we've seen with groups like moms organizations or early childhood organizations, when you know that population is someday going to be work interested or work ready. So to connect with them and make this linkage so that they know, hey, there's this great opportunity at these regional manufacturing companies or national or global manufacturing companies. So I think being creative, and we've seen companies leveraging things like TikTok and leveraging Instagram and social media as well to reach places where people are consuming information. I mean, I've seen my daughter and some of her friends and how influenced they are by these outlets. And she herself, for example, was never interested in pursuing a STEM career. And it wasn't until pandemic and until this instance where she and our family binge watched Big Bang Theory ad nauseum, and she all of a sudden now wanted to go into physics and wants to go into a STEM career. So, and it wasn't until this binge watching of Big Bang Theory, because it's so popularized in the public stream media, even now present day in syndication around HBO Max, where you can download it. It's amazing how that influenced her, and just think about all the other people that could be influenced if we could get more national spokespeople about manufacturing careers. So again, I think that's something that we, through the power of lots of organizations and trade associations aligning, how great if we can invest in some of those bigger splash marketing endeavors to get more people exposed.
Right. That's fantastic. Well, we're just about out of time here, Allison. Do me a favor and tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So our organization, again, Women in Manufacturing Association, we also do have an education foundation, which we're always looking for corporate donors and partners who want to help power some of our programs, including our newest program for empowering women in production. We've now have had a record number of 350 plus women who are enrolled in that program and have graduated from the Empowering Women in Production program, knowing that the frontline women are the future. So if anyone's interested in checking out some of those initiatives, as well as our association initiatives, our website is womeninmanufacturing.org. And lots of information there about our local chapters, our national programs and initiatives. And we hope people connect with us to further their individual interests as well as their corporate interests.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us today, Allison. Everybody out there, go and make it a great day and be impactful.
Thanks so much, Gene.